Hello, Professor. This is Jonalyn Reyes. In this second presentation, I will discuss how I applied my knowledge of another 2 out of 6 general education competencies, which are critical thinking and oral communication. The first competency I'm going to discuss is critical thinking, in which, according to Professor's video lecture, is evaluating the author's views and points, analyzing the text's messages and arguments, and drawing your conclusion and creating your own assumptions of the text. For this competency, I'm going to use a paper I wrote from English course. The example essay in this slide is about a book titled The Bluest Eyes by Toni Morrison. This story covers racism and prejudice. In this essay, I try to analyze Morrison's view and different effect of racism towards African American during the time the book was written. My introduction reads: In the novel The Bluest Eye, Piccola was a character that became the universal victim. She was a little girl who depended on the world to see her own worth and value instead of believing in her own beauty. Piccola was surrounded by a hostile condition starting from her own home, her peers, and the community that made her want to be different. This short paragraph introduced the main character and her desires to be wanted just like any other light-skinned kids in her community. Adding to this introduction, I'm going to read my conclusion for this essay that would further establish my understanding of critical thinking competency. Adding to this introduction, I'm going to read a small part of my body paragraphs that gives the insight of what message the author are trying to convey. One of my body paragraph reads, the constant reminder by her parents how ugly she is and being attached to this belief, ugliness became her reality that pushed her to attain beauty. In addition to these incidents, the lines, it had occurred to Piccola some time ago that if her eyes, those eyes that held the pictures and knew the sights, if those eyes of hers were different, that is to say, beautiful, she herself would be different, which can be found in chapter 3, titled Autumn, initially introduces Piccola's desire for blue eyes, not only for its beauty, but she wishes to alter her sights in hope of altering her reality. This is only one of the few quotes throughout the book that stuck to me because in these lines as a reader, I understand that Morrisons were trying to tell her readers that Piccola's desire for blue eyes were more than the desire to become accepted by her surrounding. In addition to using quotes, Morrison also uses symbols such as seasons. To further show my understanding of critical thinking, I will read another highlighted part that I included in my body paragraph. All of these experiences were divided into chapters that are titled after 4 seasons. Morrison separated each character's experiences according to season, but clearly pointed out the opposite of the character's experiences against what the season is about. For example is during the chapter of spring, which represent renewal, but this was the time when Piccola was raped by her father, while during the autumn chapter, which represent the time of harvest, Piccola's baby died. The way Morrison divided this story, she emphasized the natural cycle to point out to her readers the unnaturalness and the misery of her character's life experiences. The highlighted parts I have read from my body paragraphs showed my understanding that throughout Morrison's story, she used different forms of dialogues, quotes, and symbols such as the seasons to portray her character's turmoil in life. My conclusion reads, in this novel, Morrison showed that in reality no one is truly ugly, that each individual possesses a real beauty within. It is how each one defines beauty matters. Her role became important because she showed readers the real human life conditions and to show how sad that people rely on others to be able to see what we should see in ourselves. She was a delicate child that became lost and destroyed by others because of not having proper guidance in finding herself. As easy it explained that Piccola became insane because of her bad experiences, readers can also assume that in the end Piccola created a world outside from her reality, just like her mother did. To feel loved and cared, her desire for blue eyes was not because she wanted to be superior, but because she wanted to be loved and accepted. In her imaginary world, she was always praised by her friend and gave her a sense of existence where she did not achieve in her real world. Her life became a reminder that no matter what era it is, human cruelty has the same effect on everyone. In this paragraph, I have analyzed Morrison's view of how racism and prejudice affects African American children and how often their living conditions are a product of society's stigma of being part of minority. The second competency I'm going to discuss is oral communication, in which, according to Professor's video lecture, is to create and communicate a compelling central message through public speaking. I would say out of six competencies, this was the one I thought would be the hardest to overcome because I do not like speaking in front of many people. I have taken Speech 110 last semester, and for our speech, the class are prompt to have a written outline of our speech subject and had to follow a guideline as shown in this slide. This outline is actually for a group speech. Each person in a group needed to discuss why marijuana needed to be legalized in the United States, and I decided to discuss its benefit in finding a cure for Alzheimer's. Our job is to convince the audience why marijuana needs to be legalized. For this, we were only allowed to have outline in front of us, and we were graded according to content of the message, how we cite our resources in our speech, and if our speech is composed accordingly, meaning if it consists of introduction, body, and conclusion. For this speech, we are required to state information and cite our sources within delivering our message. For example, delivering the part of my argument in regards to legalizing marijuana for research purposes for curing Alzheimer. I have to begin my speech with opening line such as according to Beverly cited the sources I use in getting my information. I have done this throughout my speech to properly cite my sources in conveying my argument. Doing this, I have met the professor's guideline in delivering speeches that include information I have taken from different sources in proving my argument. Along with this outline page, I also attach a separate page for the sources I have used in composing my speech argument. In conclusion, I have established my knowledge of critical thinking and oral communication through the papers I have written for English course, an outline page for my speech class. I have shored and solidified my knowledge by analyzing the text and using proper guidelines provided by my professors in each course and citing my sources properly. Thank you for watching.